In chapter 141 of Li Hao, Crimson Legacy, we find a moment of quiet reflection and subtle strength. Li Hao, with his unmatched skill, confidently declares that a single strike would be enough to defeat any opponent, whether they are in the Soul Succession realm or newly stepping into the Divine Travel realm. His swordsmanship transcends the limits of ordinary martial arts, built upon the mastery of chi circulation and a unique technique from the Soul Succession Heaven and Earth. Yet, despite his prowess, Li Hao reminds his companion Xianxia that each path is individual. Her sword journey should be her own, free from comparison to others. This wisdom echoes throughout the chapter as Li Hao guides Xianxia, while also reflecting on his own journey toward peace and clarity. The true strength, he shows, lies not in conquering others but in mastering oneself and finding meaning beyond the endless pursuit of power. The chapter closes with a contemplative moment, leaving readers to wonder whether Li Hao is simply a warrior or something more, a guide to inner peace in a world that has forgotten how to listen. In a world where warriors and seekers cross paths, Li Hao and his companion, Xianxia, find themselves in a city filled with competition and hidden treasures. Ren, though still refining her skills, takes part in the Soul Succession realm challenges, gaining respect but not quite breaking into the top rank. Meanwhile, Li Hao, ever the wanderer, finds unexpected treasures in the form of famous paintings, but is caught in a moral dilemma of whether to claim them. A generous patron, whose son is a martial arts enthusiast, offers a solution. Li Hao will guide the young man to a worthy martial arts master in exchange for the painting. As the Grandmaster Conference looms, Li Hao is accompanied by this young apprentice, Han Wu, whose curiosity leads them to the Grandmaster Path Arena place they cannot enter without an invitation. Their journey, one of subtlety and skill, reveals that not all battles are fought with swords. Some are won in moments of quiet understanding and unexpected alliances. This narrative isn't just about strength, it's about the wisdom found in restraint and the paths that open when one seeks more than just victory. Do you like this personality? Li Hao's journey into the Grandmaster Conference is a seamless display of calm authority and silent power. Though he doesn't have an official invitation, his presence speaks volumes. With a mere flick of his hand, the dragon-patterned drum beside him roars with an awe-inspiring hum, leaving onlookers dumbfounded. The once dismissive guards now tremble in realization, stunned by his mastery and presence. Li Hao, a young celestial master, effortlessly shifts the mood, not with words, but through the resonance of his being. Behind him, Han Wu struggles to reconcile the boy he thought was a mere disciple with the legend unfolding before his eyes. As they move past the now silent guards, the river beside them roars, mirroring the churning of thoughts in Han Wu's mind. What had seemed like a quiet journey to an inner circle now feels like a step into the unknown, where Li Hao's true power, not of the sword but of mind and spirit, starts to reveal itself. The world around them, as tumultuous as the Dragon River, is unaware that a legend, bound by red thread and memory, walks among them, silently guiding and altering the course of destiny. In the vast and perilous environment where dreams of grandeur and heroic ambitions entwine, the world is filled with mighty figures contending with the very elements themselves. The inner sanctum outside the debate platform is a realm reserved for grandmasters and their families, yet it is far from quiet. With the gathering of so many grandmasters from every corner of the world, accompanied by their disciples and wealthy sponsors, the air is thick with both martial prestige and the ebb of fortune. Li Hao, standing amidst this dynamic, can sense both the power and the hunger that pervades the area. As Xianxia and Han Wu nervously observe the legendary figures around them, they realize just how far beyond ordinary mortals these beings are. Feeling the weight of history and legend in the air, Li Hao suggests they find a seat, his calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the chaos of power around them. As they settle, Han Wu can't help but be curious, suspecting that Li Hao may be the legendary figure from the Qian Dragon list. Li Hao's casual denial only fuels Han Wu's belief, but beneath his words is a burning desire. The wish to transform his family from one of wealth to one of martial prowess, as he knows true strength is the only way to thrive in an age where demons roam free. This desire leads him to ask Li Hao to become his master, a request which is met with a gentle but firm refusal. Despite his eagerness, Han Wu finds himself both humbled and inspired, his ambition to rewrite his family's legacy still burning brightly in the midst of this meeting of legend. Han Wu, desperate to showcase his virtues, was swiftly halted by Li Hao. "I can't teach you," Li Hao sighed. Uninterested in martial arts as a form of instruction chess or painting might spark his interest, but not this. Only Xianxia's long journey had pushed him to offer a sliver of guidance. Han Wu, pulling at his heartstrings with a tale of losing his mother young, attempted to muster a sad expression, though Li Hao couldn't help but feel bewildered by his theatric. Just then, a familiar voice interrupted them, and Li Hao turned to see Zhou Haitong arriving with his disciples. Zhou Ling'er, visibly irked, locked eyes with Ren Xianxia, recalling the humiliation of being beaten by someone in a far lower realm. Her gaze shifted to Li Hao with a mix of frustration and annoyance, while Li Hao, unfazed, politely acknowledged Zhou Haitong. Their mutual respect as grandmasters, however, meant Li Hao stayed seated, no need to rise. The conversation was short. Zhou Haitong directed him to an elderly man, Bai Chunhai, who was in conversation nearby. Gratitude exchanged, the matter was settled. Li Hao understood the importance of Jiang Hu's social debts favors were dangerous, always requiring repayment. As Zhou Haitong departed, Xu Wanair followed, and Zhou Ling'er, feeling the sting of defeat, glared at Li Hao before leaving in indignation. Li Hao's journey has led him into a world where power and ambition hold little sway. In a realm where memories are tangled like the roots of ancient trees, he steps quietly into the Temple of Returning Leaves, a place long forsaken by time. No longer wielding a sword, he carries only a red thread talisman, a reminder of the path he has chosen known that seeks meaning, not dominance. Among broken statues and forgotten rituals, he sits in silent reflection, guiding those around him not with force, but with the windless cut, a spiritual technique that unravels illusions and reveals the truth hidden in the storms of memory. His presence is like a soft breeze, gentle yet powerful, a contrast to the chaotic world he once knew. As others come to him, seeking answers not to battles, but to the questions of their hearts, Li Hao learns that true strength lies not in conquering the world, but in letting go of what no longer serves him. His journey, while not one of external conflict, is a confrontation with the self, a path that leads him to peace through release rather than through control. Li Hao, persistent and focused, approached Master Bai with an offer that blended humility and ambition. Despite his best efforts, Bai Chunhai, seemingly detached from worldly desires, rejected the proposition. The young man, feeling the firm resistance, eventually retreated, but not in defeat. Instead, he quietly resolved to find another way to acquire the coveted treasure. However, just as he settled back, a familiar voice called out, pulling him into an unexpected reunion. It was the group from Tan Palace Academy, with Song Yueyao and revered teachers in tow. Their arrival brought an unexpected warmth to the otherwise tense atmosphere, signaling a new chapter in Li Hao's journey. This brief encounter reveals the interplay of desires and decisions, the clash between worldly attachments and the pursuit of something greater. Li Hao's quiet resolve, mixed with his willingness to adapt, reveals a man shaped not by the treasures he seeks, but by the peace he strives for in a world of constant motion. Shen Yunqing, laughing with excitement, couldn't believe it when Zhou Zheng mentioned Li Hao's name. As the young teacher, still new to Whitehall, Li Hao had already earned deep respect from his disciples, like Song Yueyao, who, after recalling her earlier encounter with him at the Spirit Succession platform, realized it truly was him. Li Hao greeted them warmly, surprised to see familiar faces. His departure from the academy had been quiet, leaving no farewells to avoid involving them, but their kindness had not been forgotten. As they gathered, Zhao Zongyuan, ever eager, explained how they couldn't miss such an event, while Su Yehua, curious about Li Hao's sudden appearance, asked if he had left Heavenly Gate Pass. Li Hao casually replied that there were no demons there for now, prompting a shift in Shen Yunqing's expression as he suggested Li Hao humble himself and seek his father's forgiveness. Li Hao, however, dismissed the idea, indicating that the past was behind him. His companions fell silent in respect, understanding that such a young man had the courage to relinquish a position second only to royalty. Su Yehua offered his assistance with food and supplies if needed, and the group settled down to talk. Meanwhile, Han Wu, an onlooker, trembled with excitement, realizing the significance of this meeting. He had longed to join Tan Palace Academy, but was prevented by his father, fearing the dangers of the journey and the demons lurking along the way. After their graduation, Zhou Zheng promised to visit Li Hao at the Heavenly Gate Pass, but Shen Yunqing, with a tone of concern, warned against it. "Heavenly Gate Pass is too dangerous for you. Don't risk your safety," he said, stressing that they might only be a burden. Li Hao, understanding, smiled and asked if all the Whitehall disciples had arrived. Shen Yunqing explained that due to limited invitations, some had arrived only through their family's influence. Soon, a group from Whitehall appeared, greeting Li Hao with respect. Su Yehua, now a teacher, mentioned how his guidance had already helped their disciples grow stronger. As more disciples gathered, the atmosphere became lively, and the bonds of shared experience felt like a long-awaited reunion. However, their gathering caught the attention of others nearby, including Bai Chunhai and several grandmasters, who noted the growing crowd and started to piece together Li Hao's significance. This moment, filled with past ties and new expectations, held more than just a reunion. It symbolized a deeper connection, one built not only on strength, but also on mutual respect. That kid, is he the genius from Qingzhou? The room stirs with whispers and disbelief as the identity of the young man is revealed. Li Hao, a mere 14-year-old, is none other than the prodigious genius recognized worldwide, the one who had risen to the 5th rank on the Qian Dragon list at such a young age. His remarkable talent, ambition, and unprecedented feats in cultivation make him a figure of awe. But it isn't just his achievements that draw attention. His composure, his quiet strength, and his understated demeanor unsettle those who assumed him to be a simple youth. The grandmasters and warriors in the room, who once dismissed him, now regard him with a mixture of shock, respect, and a touch of fear, realizing how they had underestimated him. Even those who had once mocked him are left speechless as they realize the gravity of their mistake. He isn't just a genius, he embodies a new kind of power, one that isn't rooted in brute strength but in profound wisdom and a unique understanding of the world. His presence shifts the very air in the room as the whispers continue. Curiosity, reverence, and awe swirl around him. And in the midst of it all, Li Hao remains unfazed, his gaze calm and distant, as if he is already beyond their comprehension. The storm of attention doesn't faze him. He simply smiles, the weight of his true identity revealed without a single word of boast. A soft light glows in the midst of chaos as Li Hao stands at the center of attention, yet the air around him carries no weight, no sword, no ambition, only the serenity of his silent journey. When Li Wushuang, with a spark of recognition in her eyes, spots him across the room, she hurries over, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and lingering questions. But as their eyes meet, there's a disconnect. Though they share blood, their bond feels as distant as the winds, scattered by time and differing paths. Li Hao, calm and unfazed, offers a quiet smile, not driven by animosity, but by a deep sense of peace that has settled within him. The tension in the air dissipates, but the words left unsaid hang like forgotten whispers. Here, in this fleeting moment, Li Wushuang realizes that the glory of their lineage is nothing in comparison to the quiet power Li Hao has cultivated within himself. He's no longer just the heir of the Divine General Mansion. He is a force that stands apart, beyond all title. And in this meeting, it's not about reclaiming what was lost, it's about understanding what truly matters. After a brief pause, Li Wushuang recalled her father's words about the lurking threats in Liangzhou, and with a flicker of urgency, she sent a message through telepathy. The demons outside Liangzhou are stirring. Stay cautious. If danger arises, send a distress signal. My father is stationed in Liangzhou and can assist anytime. Stay safe as well, came the calm response from Li Hao, who was lost in thought, his mind on the military report. Li Wushuang studied him closely, sensing something about the young man. He would not be confined by the weight of the Divine General Mansion's fame and power. I hope we meet again in Qingzhou, she whispered, but Li Hao, ever composed, said nothing in reply. With a soft sigh, she turned and left, her departure leaving the onlookers still fixated on Li Hao, whispering amongst themselves. Soon, several grandmasters approached, eager to forge ties with him, having heard of his break with the Divine General Mansion. They thought little of it, dismissing it as youthful arrogance, and assumed he would eventually return. They believed that befriending him now would offer future benefits, but Li Hao saw through their motives easily. He greeted them coolly, maintaining his distance, causing their numbers to dwindle. Despite the detached nature of a grandmaster, they still sought power, and with that, vulnerabilities, families, disciples, sects to protect. Everyone sought connections, even if it meant lowering their heads before the mighty. Not long after, as the sun passed noon, a figure descended from across the Dragon River, landing with graceful ease on the debate platform. Dressed in white robes that fluttered with the breeze, the figure wore a hooded cloak, and his white hair gleamed with a youthful yet timeless presence. The gathered grandmasters recognized him instantly, Hermit Tianji. As he landed and revealed his face, his aura was unmistakable, signaling the arrival of a force that transcended the mundane world. Do you like this personality? With a serene smile and a gentle blush, he slowly surveyed the crowd, his voice echoing in the now silent space. Grandmasters who have traveled from distant lands to gather here, my gratitude knows no bounds. A chorus of pleasantries followed from the gathered grandmasters, who stood in admiration, their voices a humble chorus. As Li Hao took in the scene, he realized that at least 200 to 300 grandmasters had come, accompanied by nearly 2,000 people in total. The arrival of Hermit Tianji had turned the previously chaotic environment into a hushed reverie. After a few words of formal greetings, Hermit Tianji turned the focus to the grand rewards awaiting the participants. Cultivation techniques, treasures, spiritual medicinese, everything a martial artist could wish for. The stakes were high, as the winner of the debates would not only earn a spiritual treasure and divine weapon, but also a rare opportunity to select a peerless technique from Tianji Tower's legendary library, an honor few could resist. The library, renowned for its vast and valuable collection, was said to rival the Listening Rain Tower in its grandeur, containing techniques powerful enough to aid even those at the Four Stands realm. However, mastering such techniques was no easy feat. After the rewards were discussed, the Grandmaster debates began in earnest. The debates were informal, with each Grandmaster deciding for themselves whether to step onto the platform. Most, however, were eager to test their martial skills against others. The first to step forward was an elder Grandmaster, who spoke of his path, Yin Yang Dao. His words reflected the balance of the sun and moon, of void and substance, creating a powerful philosophy that resonated with the crowd. Li Hao, reflecting on his own journey, realized that his mastery of the yin-yang inversion swordsmanship echoed this same philosophy. Yet, mastering a technique didn't necessarily equate to becoming a Grandmaster, as the key to true mastery lay not just in the technique, but in the deeper understanding of the Tao itself. With a serene smile and a gentle blush, he slowly surveyed the crowd, his voice echoing in the now silent space. Grandmasters who have traveled from distant lands to gather here, my gratitude knows no bounds. A chorus of pleasantries followed from the gathered Grandmasters, who stood in admiration, their voices a humble chorus. As Li Hao took in the scene, he realized that at least 200 to 300 Grandmasters had come, accompanied by nearly 2,000 people in total. The arrival of Hermit Tianji had turned the previously chaotic environment into a hushed reverie. After a few words of formal greetings, Hermit Tianji turned the focus to the grand rewards awaiting the participants. Cultivation techniques, treasures, spiritual medicines, everything a martial artist could wish for. The stakes were high, as the winner of the debates would not only earn a spiritual treasure and divine weapon, but also a rare opportunity to select a peerless technique from Tianji Tower's legendary library, an honor few could resist. The library, renowned for its vast and valuable collection, was said to rival the Listening Rain Tower in its grandeur, containing techniques powerful enough to aid even those at the Four Stands realm. However, mastering such techniques was no easy feat. After the rewards were discussed, the Grandmaster debates began in earnest. The debates were informal, with each Grandmaster deciding for themselves whether to step onto the platform. Most, however, were eager to test their martial skills against others. The first to step forward was an elder Grandmaster, who spoke of his path, Yin Yang Dao. His words reflected the balance of the sun and moon, of void and substance, creating a powerful philosophy that resonated with the crowd. Li Hao, reflecting on his own journey, realized that his mastery of the yin-yang inversion swordsmanship echoed this same philosophy. Yet, mastering a technique didn't necessarily equate to becoming a Grandmaster, as the key to true mastery lay not just in the technique, but in the deeper understanding of the Tao itself. In this journey, the simplicity of the Grandmaster path is revealed as the key to unlocking profound mastery. Through the discovery of the Grandmaster's teachings, Li Hao learns that the simplest paths often lead to the deepest understanding, allowing one to progress swiftly into higher realms. However, while observing other Grandmasters, he realizes that focusing solely on complexity, such as the Yin-Yang Tao, can hinder one's true growth. The path to greatness lies in mastering the core, condensing the complexities of the Tao into a singular, perfect move. This idea is further explored when a new figure, a monk adorned in Xianxia, steps forward to reveal his unique approach to the Tao, rooted in human nature and emotions, specifically anger. His perspective challenges conventional wisdom and sparks admiration among the other Grandmasters. Yet, Li Hao's intuition grows sharper, as memories from his past reveal a deeper connection between this monk and Mount Wuliang. Seeds of intrigue and danger are subtly planted, hinting at a deeper plot yet to unfold. Amidst the cold winds by the Dragon River, a young monk in Xianxia spoke with a serene voice, like a ray of Buddha's light cutting through the chill. His words echoed deeply within the minds of those who listened, as he described the primal forces that fuel life, greed, anger, and delusion. These forces, he explained, were not confined to humans, but spread across all things, even to the sun-seeking plants and the deeply rooted trees. As Li Hao listened, he realized that these ideas could add a new layer to his Tao of all things. But as he pondered, a deeper question stirred within him: what truly connects everything in existence? Was there a common thread? Or were the distinctions between life forms insurmountable? This reflection could either guide him closer to his Grandmaster path, or leave him forever distant from the unity he sought. Just as Li Hao delved deeper into these thoughts, the young monk turned to him with a gentle smile, calling him out as a genius of unparalleled talent. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to Li Hao, filled with anticipation and skepticism. Would this legendary youth live up to the stories of his extraordinary achievements? What was clear was that his name, already linked to a great battle and impossible feats, had the power to stir both admiration and doubt. The challenge was laid before him, to confront not just the expectations of others, but the depths of his own path. In the midst of a grand banquet, a scandalous truth emerges, sending ripples throughout the guests. A young man, once admired by all, now finds himself the subject of a fierce challenge, his words piercing the air with disdain. Li Wushuang, once impressed by his views, now sees only provocation in his eyes as he targets her family with sharp words. The atmosphere thickens with tension when the young man publicly mocks her relative, Li Hao, calling his path rudimentary. Li Hao, ever the calm presence, smiles, unfazed, and responds with a subtle yet powerful rebuke. His words, seemingly a retreat, are in fact a calculated challenge, dismissing the other's arrogance. When the young man dares to bring up a family scandal, the crowd holds their breath. Li Hao's past is no secret, but the audacity of the challenge strikes at the core. Yet, Li Hao remains poised, unshaken by the cruel taunt, as he prepares to navigate this dangerous game with a steady heart. The exchange, charged with undercurrents of pride, anger, and hidden motives, leaves everyone watching in stunned silence, uncertain of what will come next in this battle of wits. The tension between the two escalated as Li Hao locked gazes with Qin Wuke. His smile was gone, replaced by calm determination. "Do you really want to discuss the Tao?" he asked, his voice soft but cutting. Qin Wuke, with a knowing smile, urged, "Please enlighten me, Li." Li Hao remained silent, his hand lifting as a small pebble rose from the ground. The pebble spun rapidly, polished, transforming into a snow-white chess piece. "All things in heaven and earth can enter the Tao. If you can catch this, it will prove your Grandmaster's Tao still holds something redeemable," he declared, a challenge for everyone to hear. With a flick of his fingers, the chess piece shot toward the debate platform, glowing with energy that formed layers of divine light around it. Suddenly, behind Li Hao, a colossal manifestation appeared, radiating an aura of dominance, the heaven and earth law manifestation. The giant phantom raised its hand, and its massive palm seemed to pinch the tiny chess piece, which now shone like a sun. It pressed down toward Qin Wuke's head with an unstoppable force. The weight of the energy was immense, as though a mountain was about to crush him. Qin Wuke's expression shifted, sensing the terrifying momentum. "Immeasurable golden body!" he cried, summoning his divine soul, radiating a golden glow adorned in sacred robes. He bellowed a chant, his fury igniting as he summoned the power of the Wrath Tao. The massive golden palm slammed towards the descending chess piece in a fierce counterattack, but the piece was relentless, its brilliance overwhelming, shaking the debate platform itself. The surrounding energies seemed to warp as the law manifestation's finger pressed down, eroding Qin Wuke's palm. This wasn't just a chess move, it was the embodiment of Tao and control. The confrontation was no longer one of mere strength, but of spiritual dominance. His object control power was unmatched, surpassing even the royal family. Even against a direct disciple of the Buddha Master, his control was something beyond their reach. With the divine palm collapsing down on him, Qin Wuke's rage surged, his energy bursting through every pore in an attempt to fight back. His meridians pulsed, and his Yang meridian was pushed to the limit as he transformed his object control power into a countering palm. But the finger from the Heaven and Earth Law manifestation pressed on relentlessly, unstoppable, with an overwhelming force that seemed to shatter the very air itself. As Qin Wuke's palm crumbled under the pressure, his entire body was crushed by the force, his bones shattering and his body bending under the weight. Despite his best efforts, he knelt helplessly, his knees buckling beneath him, his blood staining his face and robes. In that crushing moment, his body was pinned to the debate platform, paralyzed, as if nothing more than a helpless toad beneath the divine pressure. The crowd could hardly believe their eyes as the legendary Buddha's disciple, a grand master of the world, was utterly immobilized by a single finger, reduced to nothing more than a broken figure on the ground. The power of the chess piece, seemingly ordinary, had a terrifying energy that none could ignore. Even the immortal hermit Tianji could feel the immense heat radiating from it, a divine force that threatened to consume everything in its path. With a voice that echoed through the silence, the plea for mercy was heard. But would it be enough to halt the crushing blow? Or was this the beginning of the end for a once unshakable prodigy? The stillness of the moment was broken only by the distant sound of the surging river, a harsh reminder of the storm that had just unfolded. Is this conversation helpful so far? In the midst of an intense confrontation, Li Hao faces a challenge that pushes him to the edge, but his calm and composed demeanor stands as a testament to his growth. His response to Qin Wuke's challenge is not one of aggression, but of quiet defiance. A debate? Li Hao questions mockingly. Isn't this simply a test of resolve? His words, sharp yet controlled, reflect a deeper understanding of the power dynamics at play. While others are caught up in their fury, particularly the middle-aged Arhat whose anger simmers like an enraged deity, Li Hao remains unshaken. He speaks with an unsettling clarity, revealing the truth behind the battle. It's not about strength, but about the will to remain unbroken. Despite the heavy tension in the air, Li Hao's intent is clear. This isn't about victory or defeat. It's about transcending the need for validation. His silent mastery challenges the norms of this sacred confrontation. And as his enemies seethe, Li Hao's power lies not in his attacks, but in his ability to simply be. This battle, though brief, has left an indelible mark on all who witness it. Not through physical defeat, but through the quiet assertion of a higher truth. The tension rises and falls, but in the end, the greatest victory is not won on the battlefield, it is found within. The middle-aged Arhat, filled with indignation, demanded, "Withdraw your hand now! Such actions are beneath a grandmaster!" Li Hao's eyes briefly flashed coldly, before his voice sliced through the tension. "Are you asking for mercy on his behalf?" The Arhat, struggling to contain his anger, retorted, "Mercy? A debate has its winners and losers. Do not be unreasonable just because you have the upper hand." Meanwhile, Qin Wuke lay helplessly on the ground, his struggles proving futile, with every second only deepening Mount Wuliang's disgrace. Li Hao smirked. "If I'm in control, why show mercy?" "You know you're wrong. Apologize properly if you want to beg for mercy, and let him admit defeat to me directly." The Arhat's fury burned within his eyes, but his expression remained tight. If it weren't for the fear of tarnishing Mount Wuliang's reputation further, he would have already suppressed Li Hao. The tension escalated as one of the venerables from Mount Wuliang, unable to stand idle any longer, stepped forward. In Mount Wuliang, the Vajra ranked at the 15 Li realm, with venerables from the Tianren sect and Arhats from the 3 immortal realms. Far above them were the Bodhisattvas. "Let me teach you the folly of your arrogance," roared one venerable. He radiated a fierce light, with Buddha beads floating around him, each bead brimming with spiritual might. A punch, infused with profound calmness, was thrown towards the glowing chess piece atop Qin Wuke's head. The chess piece gleamed, as bright as a condensed sun, blinding all who gazed upon it. The Arhat's punch, slow in motion, held the weight of centuries of wisdom, yet it struck with explosive force, shaking the very earth with its impact. Just when everyone thought the final blow was within reach, the middle-aged venerable was struck by an unexpected force. His sleeve tore, his kasaya flowed with energy, and his body was hurled backward. Blood poured from his clenched fist, his skin splitting open, exposing the haunting white of his bones. Shock rippled through the onlookers as he staggered back, only supported by the middle-aged Arhat, who helped steady him. He spat blood, his pale face frozen in disbelief as he gazed at the chess piece gathering light from the world. The force from the small piece had felt like punching solid iron, reflecting all of his own power back at him, a force he was unprepared for. Despite his fortified body, his internal organs shook violently, blood pouring from his eyes and nose. "Impossible. What kind of Tao is this?" he stammered. His shock mirrored that of his companions, who had not anticipated this young man could not only suppress such a revered figure with a single move, but also fend off their combined efforts. In response, the two venerables from Mount Wuliang attacked, one aiming to seize the chess piece, the other to rescue their fallen comrade. But Li Hao, undeterred, saw through their strategy and prepared to shatter their pride. Drawing on the full spectrum of his world-altering abilities, his attacks became an unpredictable storm of energy deflecting, redirecting, and striking from angles they could never anticipate. It was an overwhelming force, too complex and varied for even the mightiest of them to resist. As the venerable with the demon-subduing pestle swung at the chess piece, his attack was swallowed by an unseen force, absorbed and dissolved, leaving him struggling in vain. The power of Li Hao's technique was unstoppable. Nothing in this world, no matter how grand or divine, could evade its reach. In a shocking turn of events, a fierce force unexpectedly rebounded, striking him with overwhelming power. His grip on the demon-subduing pestle faltered. His palm split open, and a crushing blow sent him flying from the debate platform, crashing to the ground. Meanwhile, an old man with a kindly face, seeking to help Qin Wuke, hesitated when he saw his ally being thrown back with force. He braced himself as the air crackled with the approach of another devastating strike from Li Hao, the very air flickering as a finger aimed with unyielding strength. In an instant, a mighty force severed the beast's head on a golden disc, sending it and its bearer tumbling into the Dragon River. The crowd was left in stunned silence as the venerables of Mount Wuliang were effortlessly defeated, while Li Hao, though only a young boy, seemed invincible, his power unmatched. This unexpected display left everyone questioning the accuracy of his previous ranking on the Qian Dragon list. Despite being ranked 5th, His power now seemed far superior, shaking the foundations of what they thought they knew. The middle-aged Arhat, overwhelmed with disbelief and fury, finally saw the full extent of Li Hao's potential, knowing that unless he intervened, the reputation of Mount Wuliang would be in jeopardy. But even if he were to strike, would it be a victory worthy of celebration? Li Hao, with a calm yet mocking smile, stood unbothered as the Arhat's resolve began to crumble. The Grandmaster, a figure from 30 years past, steps up, his presence an overwhelming force. His thin, aged form, emerging from the snowy mountains, radiates a serene, untouchable strength. As he moves toward the platform, the crowd grows tense, uncertain if the young man present can endure his challenge. The Grandmaster's bare hand reaches out, seemingly casual, yet his motion is laden with an aura of unfathomable mastery, indicating his peak as a Grandmaster. His hand, so effortless, appears capable of trapping anything within its grasp. Nothing could escape. But as he nears the brilliant light before him, something unexpected happens. The light resists him, causing his skin to burn and blister, torn by invisible blades. His body suffers, yet his resolve doesn't falter. Just as his hand nearly touches the chess piece, a wild surge of force erupts, sending him flying backward in agony, his body battered, his appearance torn and disheveled. Shocked, he slowly realizes that the true power in this moment was not his own. The youth he had overlooked remained motionless, his real strength hidden, and the thought struck him. Could this young man, barely 14, already be standing on the precipice of the Celestial Master Realm? This realization shook him to his core, for it meant the young generation might have already surpassed those who were once considered the elite, the untouchable. The Grandmaster, a figure from 30 years past, steps up, his presence in overwhelming force. His thin, aged form, emerging from the snowy mountains, radiates a serene, untouchable strength. As he moves toward the platform, the crowd grows tense, uncertain if the young man present can endure his challenge. The Grandmaster's bare hand reaches out, seemingly casual, yet his motion is laden with an aura of unfathomable mastery, indicating his peak as a Grandmaster. His hand, so effortless, appears capable of trapping anything within its grasp. Nothing could escape. But as he nears the brilliant light before him, something unexpected happens. The light resists him, causing his skin to burn and blister, torn by invisible blades. His body suffers, yet his resolve doesn't falter. Just as his hand nearly touches the chess piece, a wild surge of force erupts, sending him flying backward in agony, his body battered, his appearance torn and disheveled. Shocked, he slowly realizes that the true power in this moment was not his own. The youth he had overlooked remained motionless, his real strength hidden, and the thought struck him. Could this young man, barely 14, already be standing on the precipice of the Celestial Master Realm? This realization shook him to his core, for it meant the young generation might have already surpassed those who were once considered the elite, the untouchable. In this chapter, Li Hao's overwhelming strength shatters the expectations of everyone present. His calm yet powerful presence brings even the most legendary grandmasters to their knees. Lin Qingfeng, once revered as a great grandmaster, is swiftly defeated, leaving the onlookers in stunned silence. Yet, the shock doesn't last long, as soon another challenger steps forward, only to be knocked out in the blink of an eye. Li Wuxia, witnessing this display, is overwhelmed with both awe and disbelief, realizing the immense gap between her own ambitions and Li Hao's terrifying prowess. As she stands at the threshold of higher realms, she is left to wonder if she will ever attain such power, or if this is the true limit of her potential. Meanwhile, Zhou Haitang, driven by both pride and the desire to test his own strength, steps onto the stage, ignoring the pleas of those who care for him. In that moment, his desire to measure himself against Li Hao's power, not just for the promise of victory, but for the pursuit of Tao, takes center stage. What follows is an exhilarating clash, where the fate of ambitions and legacies hangs by a thread. With a sudden clash, the moment the sword light struck the chess piece, an overwhelming wave of martial Tao intent enveloped Zhou Haitang. His body trembled under the immense pressure, as though the very earth and sky were crashing down on him, leaving him breathless and speechless in horror. In an instant, he was sent flying out of the arena, blood spilling from his mouth, his chest ripped open, looking utterly pitiful. His daughter rushed to his side, eyes brimming with concern, but Zhou Haitang, still struggling, managed to swallow a healing elixir and steady his breath, whispering that he was fine. However, his gaze, filled with a mix of awe and fear, turned towards the young man seated nearby, calm, unmoving, yet radiating an aura of superiority. The youth exuded a transcendental presence, like a god observing the world from the peak of existence. The battle had shown Zhou Haitang's defeat, not only in body, but in spirit, crushed by the sheer power and martial Tao conception of the youth's single finger. As other grandmasters stepped forward, hoping to test their strength, One after another, they too were tossed aside with effortless ease. Despite wielding their finest techniques, none could make a dent in the youth's dominance. The platform became a silent stage of failure, with no one left to challenge him. The crowd fell into a hushed silence, witnessing the unshakable power of a 14-year-old who had transcended the limits of martial arts and spiritual thought. His strength, not just physical but divine, stood unmatched, as even the most skilled grandmasters of the world were no match for his unfathomable prowess. A grandmaster's sneeze could shatter stone, yet a seemingly ordinary stone holds the power to dominate them all, crushing the world's strongest warriors without mercy. This humble stone binds even the first-ranked bodhisattva on the Qian Dragon list, rendering him helpless like a trapped insect. The greatest shock, however, is felt by Qin Wuquei. For 4 hours, he witnesses each grandmaster fall, yet he himself is crushed, unable to resist. Once a symbol of unchallenged supremacy, the top of the Qian Dragon list, Qin Wuquei's pride is shattered as his Dao heart crumbles, his dreams of glory slipping through his fingers. At the peak of his youth, he believed his path would lead to a throne of reverence, where his name would echo in eternity. But now, in the fading light of the day, as the world outside the debate platform witnesses his defeat, a new legend is born known that will rise above all. A young boy, no older than 14, has suppressed the pride of the world with a single gesture. His name set to shine brighter than the sun. The middle-aged Arhat, eyes clouded with fear, recognizes the terrifying truth of this youth's talenta gift, so profound it seems as though a sage has reincarnated in him. In just a decade, he could stand alongside the oldest and most powerful figures. Yet, even as Qin Wuquei teeters on the edge of oblivion, Li Hao remains unyielding, waiting for a concession that never comes, his presence a testament to the harshness of truth. To admit defeat, that was the last flicker of Qin Wuquei's resolve, and if he let that go, he'd be haunted forever by the shadow of Li Hao. The middle-aged Arhat clenched his teeth, holding back his fury, and warned, "Li, mercy should be shown where it's due. Do you truly wish to make an enemy of Mount Wuliang?" Li Hao, however, just sneered in silence. Haven't they already been enemies for a long time? Yet, some things were better left unspoken, handled behind the scenes. Elder, you're overreacting. This is just a martial contest. Who's making enemies? He challenged me, so if it's to end, he should be the one to speak up. If you seek justice, why didn't you speak when he issued the challenge? Li Hao's words sliced through the tension. He continued, he used his position on the Qian Dragon list to challenge me, a rank below clearly. This was bullying. Why wasn't there any objection then? The Arhat was lost for words, his face turning pale with agitation. His gaze shifted to Hermit Tianji, a figure from Tianji Tower, which was known for its mysterious insight into the heavens. But even with all their knowledge, they failed to see Li Hao's true potential. His 15 Li realm cultivation had only just come to light. The world underestimated him, thinking he was still weaker than those in the 3 immortal realms. And yet, here he was easily showing a fraction of his power. The old stories, the father-son duel, the fall of a once invincible force, all were overshadowed by what Li Hao could truly do. Hermit Tianji, realizing his mistake, was about to speak when suddenly an explosion shook the Era Force, so great it sounded as though a meteor had crashed nearby. On the city wall, a purple array flared up before vanishing, leaving chaos in its wake. Towering structures were shattered in an instant. The people turned pale, their faces flooded with disbelief, as they realized something far greater was unfolding. The divine array protecting Dayu City, a barrier of immense power, has been breached, signaling a dire threat. This array, meant to withstand even the mightiest of invaders, including a 3 immortal realm demon, has been shattered from within. Such an act can only be accomplished by someone or something that infiltrated the city unnoticed. The breach is followed by destruction, as 2 arrow towers fall, releasing 2 shadowy figures. One slams into the city wall, while the other, a towering demon of the 3 immortal realms, swiftly kills the city officer by crushing his head with ease. Li Hao, observing from a distance, identifies the attacker as a great demon, not only powerful, but also having infiltrated the city undetected. The realization spreads. A great demon has invaded Dayu, far from the border, and the consequences are far-reaching. The city's defenders are left scrambling as grandmasters detect the unfolding crisis, and even the wise Hermit Tianji senses the gravity of the situation. With this, the imminent danger becomes all too clear. The attack is no accident, and something far darker looms on the horizon. As when Tianan set out for the Grandmaster Assembly, his Bodhisattva Master had warned him to be cautious on his journey and avoid lingering at the border. Little did he expect the demon to invade the city, and it seemed their goal was to breach the walls. Suddenly, the air was thick with tension as a Grandmaster shouted, "There's a demon army outside the city!" Grandmasters quickly sent out their divine souls, probing the surroundings, but the vast plains outside Dayu City left no hiding place for the demons. Yet in the distance, a dark rolling tide appeared on the horizon. "The demons have plotted their approach. Contact the city lord's mansion," one cried. But the formation protecting the city had already been broken. "How can we defend now?" others muttered in panic. Amidst the rising fear, a voice boomed. "These demons have chosen the wrong time to attack. With so many Grandmasters here, they've kicked an iron board." The call to arms was answered as the Grandmasters stepped forward, ready to defend the city. But before they could act, a figure in gray robes emerged from the eastern wall, sending a cold shiver down the spines of Wen Tian'an and Hermit Tianji. The figure, transforming into a massive bull demon, began wreaking havoc. With terrifying power, it destroyed homes and devoured fleeing citizens, its laughter echoing through the city. The sight ignited a furious resolve in the Grandmasters. Lin Qingfeng, healing from a previous defeat, stepped forward, his great Grandmaster strength now fully realized, ready to confront the bull demon. Together with the others, they stood firm, determined to halt the demon's charge, as the battle for the city's survival began. A shadow swiftly descended from the horizon, crashing onto the debate platform, shattering the stone and revealing a pit. Within it lay a battered figure, armored with a broken helmet and a shattered skull, eyes glazed. Hermit Tianji's face paled as he recognized the fast noni other than the Lord of Dayu City. The ground trembled violently as two figures landed with explosive force, sending craters into the earth. The dust cleared to reveal a tall figure with a purplish glow in his eyes, radiating demonic energy. His eyes lingered briefly on the manifestation of Li Hao's heaven and earth law, noting the delicious essence. With a casual gesture, he revealed his noble purple gold robe, his presence imposing. Behind him stood a gray-robed elder, exuding a mysterious, indifferent aura. The crowd gasped. Two great demons had arrived, shaking even the Grandmasters to their core. Despite their power, the group felt a deep sense of fear as these beings unleashed an overwhelming pressure. The purple-robed demon, stretching in a playful manner, walked toward them, causing disciples to retreat in terror. The atmosphere grew icy as the 200 Grandmasters quivered under the great demon's presence. Suddenly, the chess piece in the hands of the manifestation, previously restraining Qin Wuke, shot toward the purple-robed demon, breaking through the demonic energy. The young man caught it effortlessly, the radiant light vanishing instantly as if snuffed out by his hand. His playful smile turned into a sudden burst of power, and an explosive noise erupted from his palm, dissipating into fine ash. The scene was set for an unimaginable confrontation as fear and uncertainty gripped the hearts of those present. The young man in the purple robe, once exuding mild amusement, suddenly found his expression stiffening as his hand revealed deep, bloodied gashes as though slashed by countless sharp blades. He, the seemingly invincible warrior, was injured. The Grandmasters present could hardly believe their eyes. They were all too familiar with the terrifying martial prowess of Li Hao's chess pieces, having crossed blades with them in the past. But witnessing them effortlessly crushed by the great demon, they feared for their very lives, only to realize that even this immortal being, from the three immortal realms, had been wounded. As the gray-robed elder behind the young man prepared to step forward in a threatening manner, the world seemed to fall into darkness, with an ominous presence hanging in the air. Yet, with a gentle wave of his hand, the young man stopped the elder, his wounds rapidly healing before their eye. With a smile that spoke volumes, he looked at the calm, seated figure before him, his starry purple eyes gleaming with newfound curiosity. "Interesting," he mused. "So you're the little demon, king of Wanshan." At this, the Hermit Tianji's voice echoed in surprise, recognizing the young man before him. The Demon King of Wanshan's son, known for his immense strength and ruthless reputation, had now appeared before them. This was no ordinary demon. He had devastated border towns, and his presence sent shivers down the spines of the Grandmasters, who knew they stood no chance against such a powerful foe. Fear spread as the realization dawned. They were nothing more than prey to this monster. Their only hope now lay in the hands of the immortal of the three immortal realms, the last pillar of defense for Dayu City. The scene is set in a desperate stand against the relentless tide of immortal demons, where only three Grandmasters stand firm, their resolve unwavering despite the overwhelming odds. They are not mere warriors, they are leaders, each representing their own domain. With the city at risk of falling, there is no time to hesitate. Fight or perish. The Grandmasters take a stand, not as mere individuals, but as protectors of their people. Among them, Zhou Haitang and Bai Chunhai, two longtime rivals, unite in their resolve, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. In the face of impending doom, their rivalry takes a backseat to the need for survival. With the tide of demons closing in, they fight not just for their lives, but for a chance to break through the oncoming storm, each knowing that the price of cowardice is a swift and merciless death. Even though Zhou Haitang is not a great grandmaster, he refuses to run. He will protect his daughter and disciples with his life. The bond between these warriors, forged through years of rivalry and now solidarity, brings an intensity to the scene as they prepare to carve a path through the chaos, determined to find a way out of the dark fate closing in on them. The air crackles with the energy of their resolve, a moment where rivals become comrades in the face of overwhelming darkness. The Grandmasters' debate, once a promising event, quickly turns into a nightmare as the participants find themselves in a deadly trap. With no way back, fear and tension rise. Li Wushuang, pale and vulnerable, feels the weight of her situation, realizing that her distress signal is out of reach. Surrounded by loyal maidservants from the 15 Li realm, the atmosphere grows heavy with their resolve to protect her, even at the cost of their lives. Meanwhile, the minor demon king, Wan Shan, nonchalantly observes a young human, Li Hao, whose small presence seems to have caught his attention despite being nothing more than a mere insect compared to the power around him. A terrifying display of demonic power unfolds as a gray-robed elder releases a colossal dragon phantom, sending shockwaves of fear through the Grandmasters who had barely prepared for such a fight. Tensions reach a boiling point when Wen Tian'an, desperate to protect the young Buddha, faces off with the Demon King's forces. But his best efforts fail as his divine technique is overpowered. The Grandmasters, already in poor condition, find themselves overwhelmed by the overwhelming strength of the demons. This clash is no longer just about survival, it's about confronting an insurmountable force that threatens to crush their spirits and bodies alike. In the midst of chaos, Shen Yunqing and his comrades are forced to protect their disciples, their faces pale but resolute. The battle begins with no turning back, a harsh reality setting in. Shen Yunqing whispers to his disciples, urging them to escape while they still can. But with their strength insufficient to fight against the demonic power, it seems like an impossible task. However, as the battle rages on, Li Hao, who had been quietly observing, rises. His expression is cold and focused, his resolve unwavering as he prepares for the inevitable confrontation. The ground trembles beneath his feet as he summons the dragon soaring divine sword, the weapon gleaming with divine light and an overwhelming killing intent. The atmosphere shifts, the once confident minor demon king, Wan Shan, now wary. Li Hao moves with purpose, stepping forward, his cultivation surging with immense power as he unleashes a sword strike that cleaves through the ground, releasing a roar that strikes fear into his enemies. Wan Shan, now fully transformed into a demon, meets the sword with his own power, his purple demonic aura enveloping his fist in a collision that shakes the very heaven. The tension is palpable, with both sides on the brink of their ultimate clash. In this breathtaking clash of strength and resolve, the once youthful hero transforms into a towering figure. A half-beast of immense power, standing at a staggering 4 to 5 meters tall. His fist, a force of nature, bears a deep gash, crimson flowing from it as he faces the deadly adversary before him. The gray-robed elder, once a figure of calm, tears through his own robes to reveal the monstrous aura of a demon king, its power crackling in the air. His fierce gaze locks onto the hero, his voice dripping with malice as he speaks of devouring him slowly, savoring every moment of the hunt. But the hero, undeterred, raises his blade, slashing with precision, and the very ground beneath them quakes in response to the eruption of sword chi. The lesser demon king, Wan Shan, reacts quickly, his roar shattering the attack, but the clash continues at breakneck speed, both combatants displaying impossible speed and power. Even the onlookers, seasoned martial masters and experts, can hardly believe their eyes, struggling to comprehend the raw energy of the battle. Yet, it is clear that this young man, wielding a sword infused with the essence of a true dragon, has far surpassed the limits of ordinary fighters. The tension mounts as the lesser demon king, now intrigued, senses the hero's strength, wondering whether he is dealing with a prince or a disciple of an immortal. And so, the stage is set for a confrontation that will test the limits of both combatants' power and will. The battle rages on, fierce and unrelenting. Wan Shan, the lesser demon king, bellows in fury, his massive form swinging with a fury that could shatter mountains. But Li Hao stands unshaken, his movements deliberate and focused. With a swift slash, his sword shines like a meteor, striking with the weight of 1,000 mountains. The attack cleaves through Wan Shan's fist, which had just begun to heal, reopening the wound with excruciating pain. Wan Shan's rage grows, but Li Hao's calm remains undisturbed. Without hesitation, he strikes again, his third slash filled with a force that feels unstoppable, as if it could shatter even the toughest of foes. Wan Shan, now desperate, transforms into a giant lion, his demonic energy surging as he raises a mighty claw to crush Li Hao. But even with the massive disparity in size, Li Hao counters with a single punch, pushing the demon back despite the overwhelming strength of the blow. The ground beneath him cracks, yet his resolve does not waver. As Li Hao's Heaven and Earth Law manifestation merges with his being, his power surges to new heights, making Wan Xian realize that this fight is far from over. Meanwhile, the gray-robed Elder, embodying the indestructible might of his true dragon form, wreaks havoc on the Grandmasters, his body impervious to their combined attacks. The demon's flesh, beyond the strength of even the indestructible realm, is untouched by their efforts. Despite their best attempts, they fail to damage the Elder, and even Hermit Tianji, one of the mightiest among them, is sent flying with a single strike. In this confrontation, the true nature of power is revealed not in dominance or destruction, but in unyielding persistence and the indomitable will to protect what is sacred. Amid the chaos of battle, a roar echoed from the Jiao Fiend, a creature driven by the fury of a young master's injury. The air trembled as the Grandmasters fought desperately, but two figures suddenly appeared, one of whom was Li He, secretly guarding Li Hao. With his ally, he fought fiercely to hold back the Jiao Fiend, urging the Grandmasters to scatter and defend the city walls against the incoming demon horde. Without the protection of the city-protecting formation, the city would fall in an instant, and its citizens would be devoured by the demons. In the midst of this, Li Wushuang, seeing Li, he felt a surge of relief. She hurriedly led her sword attendants away, knowing the fight was lost, but her priority was to signal for her father's aid. As the battle raged, two immortals emerged to fight the Jiao Fiend, buying the Grandmasters time to flee. Though the immortals could hold their own, the gap between them and the powerful demons was clear. Meanwhile, Li Hao faced the young Demon King, Wan Shan, whose power seemed insurmountable. With a cold laugh, Wan Shan approached, but Li Hao was undeterred. He wielded his sword with newfound mastery, striking with a force that stunned everyone, cutting through the demon's attack and leaving the young Demon King wounded. Yet, despite the heavy blows, Wan Shan's body remained tough. Surprising Li Hao, as the battlefield fragmented, each side sought their own survival, knowing that this confrontation was one of truth, not mere battle. Li Hao didn't give his opponent a moment's respite, his sword flashing towards the man's throat in a deadly strike. Just as his blade soared through the air, a thunderous voice filled the space, followed by a blinding golden feather cutting through the void with lightning speed. It was so fast that by the time Li Hao noticed, it was already nearly at his face, a fatal threat looming. Panic set in, and just as the feather seemed inevitable, an old figure appeared before him. Clad in a simple gray robe, it was Feng Boping who had been lurking in the shadows all along. With a casual motion, he snatched the feather from the air with such precision it seemed to defy time itself. Li Hao's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. The cold, merciless gaze of a man in black appeared above the little Demon King, his presence drenched in overwhelming demonic power that darkened the skies. The situation was, Feng Boping, however, remained unfazed. With an unshaken voice, he turned to Li Hao and simply asked, "Can you hold out for a quarter of an hour?" With determination, Li Hao affirmed his readiness. For in that moment, the calm before the storm felt more like a test of inner resolve than a mere battle for survival. The atmosphere crackled with tension as the man in black issued his cold command, urging his allies to act swiftly. A fiend, already in the midst of battle, trembled at the man's presence, hastily agreeing to his orders. Meanwhile, the powerful aura in the air only grew thicker, threatening to consume everything in its path. The little Demon King, consumed by fury, stared at his adversary, Li Hao, his chest seething with energy as his body pulsed with demonic power. Despite his vast strength and ancient techniques, Li Hao had wounded him something he could not allow to stand. In a roar of rage, the Demon King unsheathed a massive golden saber, the air itself trembling with its power. With the wind howling, the saber grew to an enormous size, sweeping the earth with terrifying force. Yet, beneath this overwhelming power, Li Hao stood undaunted, his eyes gleaming with a profound resolve. His years of fighting, and his absorption of countless martial insights, had led him to a deeper understanding. As the saber descended, Li Hao's intent was clear. He was no longer just a fighter. He was a force that would rise, not to meet violence with violence, but to unravel it with truth. Li Hao gracefully dodges the overwhelming force of a giant saber, his sword a mere whisper in the chaos, as he evades with the elegance of a butterfly in flight. Like a flash of lightning, he bypasses the weapon, his blade striking towards the eyes of the Wan Shan little Demon King. The Demon King, stunned and enraged, questions how Li Hao could have unlocked the same wind and thunder path. Just as Li Hao's strike nears its target, a gray bone shard, resembling a remnant of a Demon King's skull, intervenes, deflecting the sword. Though the shard is knocked away, it buys enough time for the Demon King to evade, his anger now flaring with both shame and fury. He retaliates with a fierce roar, invoking the Lionheart 9 transforms, his blade blazing with fiery power as he presses on. Li Hao, however, dances around him, evading each strike with movements drawn from ancient techniques that enhances agility and speed. The Demon King's attacks, though relentless, begin to wear him down, his heavy breathing a sign of the strain. Realizing his opponent's intent to exhaust him, the Demon King activates the unwithering strength, rapidly healing his wounds and renewing his assault with even greater intensity. But in a sudden shift, Li Hao halts, his mind crafting a new technique as he reflects on the vast sea and the peak of heaven. With his Heavenly Peak sword, a strike of unmatched power, he stands ready, poised to challenge the Demon King's relentless advance with a philosophy of battle that transcends mere force. In a moment where the ultimate sword technique, the Heavenly Peak sword, symbolized the greatest power, Li Hao found himself contemplating not just its overwhelming might, but the possibility of blending it with the Taiji Chankun sword from Tan Palace. Merging yin and yang, the forces of life and death, he crafted a new sword technique, naming it Reincarnation. As the battle progressed and Wan Shan, the little Demon King, charged forward, Li Hao harnessed the immense power flowing through his body, activating the 7 stars lighting technique once again, defying his own physical limits. With the Dragon Sword resonating in tune with his will, the blade cut through the night like a piercing moonbeam, its arc of light overwhelming Wan Shan's fiery strike, tearing through flesh and bone. The Jiao Fiend, in a final act of devotion, threw itself in the way to save its master, but its divine soul shattered, and its massive form crumbled under the weight of Li Hao's power. As the soul of the Jiao dissipated, it urged Wan Shan to flee, but it was too late. The battle had been decided, and with the Jiao's final breath, the storm of destruction came to an end, leaving only silence in its wake. Is this conversation helpful so far? Wan Shan, the little Demon King, felt an unexpected chill, his blood running cold in a moment of confusion. After centuries of cultivation under his father's protection, he had risen quickly through the realms, gifted with a physique that propelled him to the Cycle Heaven realm perfection from birth. In just 10 years, he had conquered the Divine Traveling, and in another 60, the Heavenly Human realm. It wasn't long before he reached the 3 immortal realms, each step more remarkable than the last. His ambition pushed him further, and a century ago, when he attained the Unwithering realm, his gaze turned towards the untouched Liangzhou. Over decades, he had tasted success after success, growing bolder with each victory, believing his conquest would go smoothly. But now, a strange sensation washed over him, a feeling of death, of trembling fear. The roar of a human grandmaster pierced the air, and suddenly, Wan Shan's instinct for survival kicked in. Despite his overwhelming rage, his talent, and his future as a great Demon King, he knew he could not die here. Not yet. Desperately, he unleashed his lion's roar skill, but it barely affected the human sword, Qi. In an instant, his body transformed into his true lion form, sprouting wings from his mother's bloodline. Though too small to fly, they allowed him to speed toward the city gates in a frantic escape. His heart burned with humiliation after centuries of triumph. He had never faced such disgrace. Li Hao raised an eyebrow, witnessing the bull demon's fiery outburst, full of promises of death and rage, only to turn and flee moments later. The demon had appeared relentless, but it seemed even the most fearsome could not resist the urge to escape when faced with true power. Li Hao, however, was not one to give up on a pursuit. With the dragon sword in his grip, controlled remotely, he slashed out with lightning speed, cutting through the chaos. The bull demon, desperate and furious, lunged at Li Hao with all its might, its body surrounded by needle-like hairs that fired like a deadly barrage. Yet, the dragon sword sliced through them effortlessly, though the relentless attack slowed it down for a moment. Not willing to back down, the bull demon crashed forward with all its strength, its momentum like an unstoppable force. Li Hao, unfazed, summoned the power of his sword again, releasing the Reincarnation slash. The sword spun in a vortex, grinding away the demon's momentum, and with a decisive strike, it cleaved through the bull demon's body. The demon, feeling its hoofs severed as if cutting through soft meat, roared in disbelief. With its body crumbling, its soul burned with fury, rushing toward Li Hao in a final attempt to end him. Yet, Li Hao was resolute. He raised his sword high and, with the power of the dragon's sword, trapped the demon's soul with a piercing dragon light, dimming it until only ashes remained. As the fallen demon's eyes reflected its last image, the image of a giant lion running sorrow and regret filled its gaze. The destruction of the bull demon's soul was absolute, and as Li Hao turned his attention to the fleeing young demon king, he remained undistracted by the surrounding chaos. In that moment, the strength of his sword spoke volumes, louder than any roar of defiance. As the tide of demons surged towards the city, the ground trembled with their impending arrival. Li Hao's heart sank, his divine soul soaring high above Dayu City to witness the chaos from afar. From the city walls, the Grandmasters who once discussed the Tao stood ready, preparing for the battle ahead. Yet, there was little hope against the monstrous forces, especially with the presence of great demons from the three immortal realms. Without hesitation, Li Hao pursued the young Demon King. Wan Shan, his dragon sword cutting through the air as he relentlessly closed the distance. Wan Shan's heart raced, but he dared not look back, knowing that only survival mattered. He pushed forward toward the city gates, where he could hide among the demon army and escape pursuit. However, the looming threat of death soon followed him. With one last desperate effort, the young Demon King tried to evade, but Li Hao's sword sliced through him with deadly precision, decimating his body and soul. The dragon sword followed swiftly, and Wan Shan's desperate attempt to ignite his divine soul ended in failure. As the last remnants of his consciousness faded, Li Hao stood victorious, his calm demeanor betraying the relentless pursuit he had just completed. The flying phase had proven to be a decisive move, making all the difference in this fatal chase. Li Hao's power had reached unimaginable heights as his range of attack doubled, extending 100 miles. He returned his dragon sword, inspecting the corpse of the fallen Wan Shan Little Demon King to ensure it was truly dead before he allowed himself a moment of relief. Outside, the tremors grew stronger and the furious roars of demons echoed across the land. The great demons, witnessing the battle through their divine souls, saw the desperate efforts of the Wan Shan Little Demon King trying to burn his soul to escape, and they erupted in anger. Despite losing their leader, the demons only grew more ferocious and unyielding, showing a level of discipline akin to a well-trained army rather than a scattered group. Realizing the threat the demon forces posed, Li Hao couldn't ignore the possibility of a brutal clash if the other Demon King's forces were as fierce as soldier. Without hesitation, he called upon his divine soul to survey the battlefield and quickly found Shen Yunqing and others, along with the Whitehall disciples on a city tower. With demons already scaling the city walls, Li Hao wasted no time, rushing to their side. Yet, the battle's destructive force had already left chaos in its wake. The City Lord's mansion had crumbled, and demons from the immortal realms had launched their attack, wreaking havoc. As the tide of demons surged, Li Hao searched for his own, finding Ren Xianxia still safely on the debate platform. Realizing the immense danger of this battle, where even the highest ranked could easily fall, Li Hao took to the skies once again. He would not wait for the demons to arrive, knowing the ensuing chaos would only put everyone at greater risk. With a steely resolve, he prepared for what was coming, determined to protect those who mattered most. As the demonic tide approached, Li Hao paused, remembering the promise he made. With the dragon sword in hand, he prepared to impart the final lesson to his disciples. The battlefield was on the verge of collapse, yet Li Hao, ever calm, stood ready to fulfill his role as both teacher and warrior. His movements were like those of a celestial being, each step purposeful, with sword chi manifesting around him as waves crashing against the shore. His attack, a fusion of endless sea and moonlight, created a magnificent tidal wave of sword chi that tore through the demon forces. A surreal sight unfolded, demons perished by the hundreds as the sword tide surged. This was no ordinary strike. It was a lesson in both skill and power, a demonstration of his overwhelming mastery. As the battle raged, even the fiercest demons could not withstand the might of the sword. Li Hao had transformed the tide of war into his teaching moment, leaving all in awe of his strength and wisdom. A monumental shift occurs as the sword chi morphs into distinct manifestations, each revealing a fragment of the Grandmaster martial realm. Stars and moon, flowers and birds, decaying elements, sharpness, and speed. These are the facets displayed within the sword's tidal waves, crashing fiercely against the demon tide. The onlookers, including Shen Yunqing and the others, are left in awe, their eyes wide, with both shock and eager curiosity. Zhao Zongyuan urges them to focus, emphasizing that the true lesson is not in the sword moves, but in understanding the way of the sword itself. As the disciples struggle to grasp the overwhelming display of power, Su Yahua, deeply engrossed, marvels at the countless paths revealed within the waves. Even the Grandmasters on the city walls, once victorious in battle, are struck by the sheer magnitude of this sword's might. As the demonic forces are pushed back, bloodied and broken, a powerful immortal demon watches in disbelief, its fury rising at the sight of this incomprehensible strength. The devastating sword attack its vast reach, not possible by mere chi force, leaves a lasting impression, symbolizing the terrifying pinnacle of human potential. Do you like this personality? In the midst of a chaotic battlefield, Dragonsaur senses a powerful immortal realm demon emerging and charges into the fray with incredible speed, cutting through the horde with a single, lightning-fast strike. The great demon retaliates by summoning a swamp-like attack, but Dragonsaur's divine sword slices through it effortlessly, cutting the demon to pieces. The demon, desperate to survive, attempts to flee, but is soon cornered, its divine soul exposed. Dragon Sword delivers a final blow, obliterating the demon with a forceful strike. As the tide of battle shifts, the remaining demons scatter in fear, but Dragon Sword relentlessly pursues them, ensuring not a single one escapes. With his sword sweeping through the battlefield, all the demons are slain. The defenders, who had once felt hopeless, now witness a miraculous turn of events, as if the impossible had been undone by a single warrior's might. Yet despite his victory, Li Hao, the one behind Dragon Sword, stands exhausted. This battle, though won, has taken its toll on him, and he quietly reflects on his drained state. Aware that the fight is far from over, he prepares to continue his journey, seeking out new challenges, while his disciples watch, silently learning from his every move. Li Hao, the young swordsman, enters the chaotic battlefield with his divine soul looming behind him, observing the demon tide attacking the city. Despite his exhaustion and the depletion of his chi force, he wields the legendary Dragon Sword with precision, cutting through the waves of demons and aiding the defenders at the western city wall. His swift and sharp swordplay turns the tide, saving many grandmasters who had once sparred with him, creating a bond of mutual respect and support. As the battle intensifies, Li Hao uses his last strength to push forward, cutting down demons at the northern gate where they had breached the city. His Dragon Sword's power proves crucial, turning the tide in their favor. However, despite his valor, Li Hao's thoughts linger on the vanishing corpse of the Demon King, which he believes serves no personal benefit. The sword's return to its sheath marks the end of the battle, but not of Li Hao's journey. The scene unfolds like a quiet storm, where warriors are not defined by the clash of blades, but by their willingness to let go of their past selves and serve a higher purpose. The scene closes with the serene image of Li Hao's sword returning to its rightful place, leaving behind a peaceful yet determined aura. Suspended in the air, Li Hao surveyed his surroundings where the once oppressive dark clouds of demon energy had dissipated. The uncertainty of Feng's battle left him uneasy, yet trusting in Feng's unparalleled skills, he believed that his ability to escape danger was beyond compare, even by the second master. Suddenly, a light laughter broke the silence. "Kid, I told you to hold on for a quarter of an hour, yet you already went and beheaded that little demon king." Feng's voice echoed behind him. Li Hao turned to find him standing there, clothes tattered, stained with blood that wasn't his own. Sighing in relief, Li Hao asked about the demon, to which Feng casually responded, "Ran away." Though he could have pursued it, the risk of venturing further from this spot seemed unwise. Li Hao smiled, unconcerned about the demon's fate. If it wasn't dealt with today, it could be handled later. "You're worried about me?" Feng chuckled. "Your actions expose the little demon king's weakness, allowing me to injure it severely. Otherwise, it would have become even more dangerous." Their exchange painted a vivid picture of the intensity of their respective battles. Judging by its title, the Demon King likely came from Wanshan. Li Hao mused. Feng agreed, remarking on how hard it was to detect the demon's presence if it remained hidden. He then glanced at Li Hao with concern, urging him to increase his strength. In half a year, trouble may come. Li Hao's mind raced. The news of his victory would certainly reach Wanshan, and the presence of two Demon Kings now posed a greater threat. With the possibility of Feng leaving soon, the window for conflict had narrowed. Li Hao sighed deeply, realizing that regardless of the outcome, an inevitable confrontation with Wanshan's forces was now certain. In a world where the line between greatness and downfall is razor thin, a young hero stands at a crossroads of profound transformation. Having faced unimaginable battles, from confronting grandmasters to slaying a demon king and eradicating 100,000 demon hordes, Li Hao now finds himself at a moment of stillness where the weight of his past begins to bear down on him. In a quiet yet powerful act of humility, he steps back, refining his Tao heart, knowing that perfection is a journey rather than a destination. As he rests, the gratitude of those he has saved fills the air, their respect for him growing not only from his undeniable strength, but from his unwavering character. Yet, Li Hao's true evolution lies in his rejection of past ties, signaling his departure from the shadows of his former self. No longer a caged bird, his transformation from prodigy to powerhouse is complete, and with it comes the weight of expectation from those who once saw him merely as a young talent. But to him, this is not a path to power, it is a path to clarity. And the true nature of his strength is not in his victories, but in his quiet resolve to carve his own way forward. The events that led to the extraordinary battle were shrouded in mystery, and the true motivations behind the Li family's actions remained unclear. But what transpired before their very eyes left a lasting impact, especially when Li Hao was forced to renounce his family name and leave. A touch of hesitation flickered in Zhou Haitang's expression as he offered his assistance, extending a favor that Li Hao, ever cautious, accepted with gratitude. The respect shown by the Grandmasters, addressing him as young Master Hao, avoided using his former surname, a silent recognition of his wishes. In return, Bai Chunhai, a respected figure, presented him with a painting, a gift that Li Hao humbly accepted, despite the earlier tension. As the crowd dispersed, Li Hao's departure was as quiet as his arrival, accompanied only by Ren Xianxia, and the city's chaos receded into the distance. Their journey continued, with Li Hao's purpose fulfilled, but his heart a little heavier with the realization that his ties with the Li family might never be mended. Even as an army stirred on the horizon, he chose a path of quiet retreat, a silent witness to the battles that would unfold in his absence. Is this conversation helpful so far? In the chaotic clash of power, Daiyu City barely held on against the relentless assault of Wanshan, a minor demon king, who led an army with devastating force. His surprise attack was bolstered by the terrifying appearance of a four-stands realm demon king, causing panic until a mysterious figure intervened, pushing the demons back. The news of this upheaval spread swiftly, reaching the sacred imperial city of Daiyu and the heavenly origin divine general mansion. Inside the mansion's council hall, Li Tianjiang, accompanied by his family and retainers, gathered to deliberate the situation. A massive map laid before them as they discussed reports detailing the worsening situation in Liangzhou. Among those present, Gao Qingqing's anxiety was palpable. Her husband, Li Xuanli, stationed in Liangzhou, was at grave risk, and her sleepless nights were haunted by vivid nightmares of attending his funeral. As the tension mounted, a fresh war report from Liangzhou arrived. Li Tiangang, with a sinking heart, opened the three reports, each more dire than the last. The first outlined the demon activities surrounding Liangzhou, the second described the martial experts' talks in Daiyu City, and the third, the most chilling, chronicled the demon's devastating attack on Daiyue. The room fell into heavy silence as Li Tiangang's expression darkened. His concern deepened as the gravity of the situation became undeniable. Is this conversation helpful so far? Li Mushu's eyes widened with a flicker of disbelief as he processed the Nushi's own nephew, Li Hao, had surpassed all expectations, slaying 3 immortal great demons, including the young kings of the Unwithering Realm. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it. This was a feat that even the greatest of the martial world had never achieved. The report, corroborated by numerous witnesses, confirmed it. And yet, Li Mushu couldn't shake the wonder had he misjudged Li Hao all along? The young man, once dismissed as nothing more than a figure in the shadow of the Divine General Mansion, had proven to possess a talent that shattered all limits. Li Mushu felt an excitement surge within him, imagining the glory that awaited the Li family. But then, his gaze turned sorrowful as he looked at Li Tiangang, who remained silent, burdened by regret. Li Mushu, desperate for reconciliation, suggested that it wasn't too late for Li Tiangang to make amends. Yet, Li Tiangang's response was sharp, questioning not Li Hao's talent, but his actions suppressing the Buddha's child, defying the Buddha Lord, and making enemies of powerful forces. In that moment, Li Tiangang's anger flared, but so too did a quiet realization. This young man, with all his monstrous potential, was not just a threat to the world's power structures, but a challenge to everything they had known. What lay ahead for him? Only time would reveal whether the path to glory was also a path to destruction. Li Mushu's heart raced as he processed the shocking Nushi's pupil, Li Hao, had defeated not 1, but 3 immortal great demons. Not just any demons, but the mighty young kings of the Unwithering Realm. In an instant, Li Hao's growth had surpassed every expectation, breaking the limitations of the Daiyu Divine Dynasty. Li Mushu had always known the boy's potential, but this was unimaginable. And yet, he was still haunted by his silent confrontation with Li Tiangang, whose unspoken remorse weighed heavily on him. While the world marveled at Li Hao's feats, Li Mushu's heart burned with a different fire. He could see his family's future on the brink of greatness, but at what cost? As the council hall fell into heavy silence, whispers of the Dragon Sword and its rumored ties to Li Hao's newfound power lingered in the air. But the real question was not about his identity or weapon set, was about his astonishing talent, which could either lead him to greatness or destroy him in the process. Was this truly the path forward? Li Tiangang's hesitation hung in the balance as Li Mushu urged him to reconsider. The debate wasn't over talent, it was about the consequences of Li Hao's actions, the enemies he had made, and the inevitable conflicts ahead. Would this child, brimming with unparalleled power, turn back or forge ahead? Unrelenting. Only time would tell. Li Tiangang's voice carried a calm yet firm tone as he addressed his second uncle, Li Mushu. Afraid? He questioned, shaking his head. No, it's about knowing when to act and when to wait. The reason you lost to my father wasn't because of lack of strength, but because of vision. The tension between them was palpable as Li Mushu's anger flared. Are you lecturing me now? He growled. Li Tiangang remained unfazed. Our Li family respects the imperial family, but Mount Wuliang, I haven't forgotten their meddling. And as for the world's grandmasters, while they may be beneath the weight of the Li family, they aren't to be underestimated. With a wave of his hand, he dismissed the idea of fear and continued, Hauer has potential, but his recklessness is a problem. It's not about criticizing him, but guiding him. If he can't accept even the slightest criticism, what future does he have? He paused, flicking an envelope towards Li Mushu. Take this incident, he was provoked. Defeating his opponent would have raised his name without escalating matters. But now, the retaliation is justified and the damage is done. Li Tiangong's gaze was unwavering. You've spoiled him, and it shows. Reckless action is thrilling in the moment, but it breeds consequences. As adults, we must learn restraint, or else we risk undoing all that we've built. His words echoed with the weight of experience, a reminder of the fine line between strength and wisdom. In the quiet tension between the two, Li Tiangong's cold yet calculated words pierce through the room, his gaze hardening as he addresses Li Mushu. The conversation turns toward the delicate balance of power and responsibility, where one's actions can either ignite loyalty or spark rebellion. Li Mushu's sharp wit counters every attempt to justify the harshness of a father's refusal to embrace his son's potential, even when that son has earned accolades and the admiration of the people. Yet, Li Tiangang remains unmoved, insisting that there's a deeper game at play on of survival and control, not just family pride. The weight of his thoughts is clear as he contemplates not just the future of his son, but the fate of their entire land. With the shadow of vengeance looming, he makes a decision, one that might offer redemption or destruction depending on how it's played. Li Mushu, ever the observer, breathes a silent sigh of relief, knowing that the course of action is set, though not without sacrifice. And in the end, the true cost of power and legacy hangs in the balance, as both men are caught in the web of their own choices. In the serene Brahma pure land of Mount Wuliang, amidst the golden glow of the Buddha's teachings, two disciples, Qin Wuke and Li Qianfeng, knelt before the infinite Buddha Lord. The Buddha, with compassion radiating from his every word, acknowledged their defeat in Liangzhou and reassured them of their value despite their failure. He spoke of a future where, with time and cultivation, they could ascend to the heavenly human realm and compete for the coveted true dragon status. However, he also reminded them that strength is transient like flowers blooming in March and withering in September. In this delicate moment, both disciples reflected deeply, each carrying their own burdens of disappointment and hope. The Buddha's words echoed not just as counsel for their future, but as a reminder that sometimes growth lies not in surpassing others, but in embracing the cycles of life with acceptance and peace. In the serene and sacred realm of Mount Wuliang, the infinite Buddha Lord sits in tranquil meditation, radiating a golden glow, while his disciples kneel before him. Two prodigious figures, Qin Wuque and Li Qianfeng, have faced defeat at the hands of a remarkably talented young man, and the Buddha Lord, with his calming presence, assures them that their loss is no dishonor. His words echo wisdom, reminding them that strength is not a constant, and each soul's path is unique. He advises them to stay on the mountain and cultivate their abilities for the next 3 years, with the hope of reaching the heavenly human realm, where they may one day challenge this young prodigy. Yet, the Buddha Lord's wisdom extends beyond mere power. It is a reminder that true growth lies in understanding one's own nature. Even as they prepare for what lies ahead, there is an underlying message. True strength is not measured by victory, but by the peace found in one's own journey. Is this conversation helpful so far? Li Hao, in his quiet, purposeful existence, continues to build not just dwellings, but a future. He tasks Song Chumo with a simple errand, but his actions speak volumes about his true plans. As he constructs a city from the remnants of a mountain, he demonstrates not just physical strength, but his ability to shape the world around him with ease. His control over the environment, aided by his 15 Li realm, allows him to bend nature itself to his will. Yet, it's not just the physical construction of a city that's at play here, it's the rebuilding of hope, of memories long faded. When Li Hongzhuang questions him, her gaze reveals more than just curiosity. It's the spark of something deeper, a desire for a return to the strength of old. Li Hao's casual response, not rebuilding, just restoring, is a promise not only of a physical city, but of a legacy that could stand against the tides of time and war. But as shadows stir outside the walls, with the threat of the demon forces looming, Song Chumo brings up the danger of retaliation from a demon king's wrath. Li Hao, ever composed, reassures her with his traps, hidden far and wide, designed not just to protect, but to remain unseen, making him an even more formidable force. His calmness isn't just strategic, it's a reflection of his inner peace. a piece that allows him to guide others while never losing himself. The world outside may tremble, but within this quiet sanctuary, Li Hao isn't just waiting for a battle, he's preparing for the future. In the midst of intense struggles, Li Hao was barely holding on, managing to channel his chi force during the delicate process of absorbing and transferring energy. Meanwhile, Li Hongzhuang spoke with resolve, acknowledging the potential threat they faced. The death of the Demon King's son would surely draw retaliation from the powerful figure, but she knew this was just the calm before a storm. Song Chumo, once planning to leave in half a year, now vowed to stay with him for 3 years, a sacrifice that carried its own burdens. Li Hao, knowing the strain it would place on her, half joked, half worried about the costs. In this moment of uncertainty, all could do was brace themselves, waiting for the inevitable clash with multiple demon kings that threatened to erase them all. Yet as days passed, the anticipated attack from Wanshan's Demon King never came. It seemed the Demon King, cautious and strategic, was biding his time, waiting for a chance to strike when they were most vulnerable. But the arrival of 2 letters from the Divine General Mansion in Qingzhou hinted at an unfolding plot, one that could either change the tides or lead to irreversible consequences. The tension simmered, each move feeling like a step closer to either salvation or doom. Is this conversation helpful so far? After a satisfying meal, Chuji Yue quietly departed on horseback, slipping Li Hao a precious charm that held the true blessing of Emperor Yuthei's Saint Heart charm. In times of danger, this charm could be the difference between life and death. Li Hao was both surprised and moved, having often heard of such items in conversations with his uncles, but never expecting to hold one. The charm was a rarity used by the most powerful beings in the Four Stands realm, far beyond ordinary weapons or armor. Li Hao's own Dragon Sword, a divine weapon in its own right, paled in comparison to the Saint Heart treasure items, so coveted that only a handful of the strongest practitioners in the realm owned them. This charm, while a consumable, offered not offensive power but a shield from harm, a treasure even among the most elite. Gratitude flooded Li Hao as he thanked Chuju Yue and asked him to convey his thanks to the Emperor. Yet, despite the honor, Li Hao's vision of Emperor Yu, once a towering, unreachable figure in his mind, had softened with time. The Emperor was not just an imposing symbol of power, but a figure capable of compassion. As the snow continued to fall and the months passed in quiet reflection, Li Hao found himself not just cultivating but contemplating his own place in the world, a world where martial strength alone no longer seemed the ultimate pursuit. After a satisfying meal, Chuju Yu rode off, leaving behind a parting gift for Li Hao, a Saint Heart charm, a rare and valuable item meant for protection. Li Hao, familiar with the legend of such a charm from conversations with his uncles, was taken aback by its significance. This charm, used by the most powerful practitioners in the Four Stands realm, was known for its ability to save lives in moments of peril, unlike offensive charms that could even pose a threat to those in the Four Stands realm. Li Hao's Dragon Sword, a famous divine weapon, was among the finest of its kind, but it paled in comparison to the Saint Heart heavenly treasures, which were coveted by only the most elite. As Li Hao accepted the Saint Heart charm, his thoughts turned to his reverence for Emperor Yu, whose image remained as a towering, distant figure. Yet, the generosity of such a ruler made Li Hao realize that perhaps he was not as unreachable as he once believed. Days passed in quiet reflection, with Li Hao immersed in his cultivation, seeking peace and understanding, while the world outside continued to change, unnoticed by the stillness of his heart. In the silent embrace of the snow-covered land, Li Hao sits atop a snowy peak, harmonizing with the world around him, sensing every movement within miles. The demons stir in the distant caves, the fierce mountain tigers battle over a deer, and the frozen river's surface is an illusion of stillness while life thrives beneath. Nature's rhythm hums as snowflakes descend from the sky, reminders of the world's cyclical dance. The roots of life stretch deep into the earth, sprouting and growing with the seasons, as the fish beneath the ice glide like spirits in the sky. Yet, the people busy, bound by invisible chains, seem to be the only ones unaware of their restraint. Li Hao, having brushed against the elusive Tao of all things, stands on the cusp of a great breakthrough, his strength far greater than it was in the past. With the lessons of the past 6 months, his swordsmanship has evolved into a weapon of precision, capable of ending battles with a single strike. Still, a subtle wind stirs, a fleeting thought brushes his mind, but just as quickly, it slips away. As he picks up the little white fox beside him and heads to camp, the world feels both peaceful and heavy, as if everything is connected in quiet observation. With the impending danger of the Demon King's return, he advises Song Chumo to leave, not wanting her to be ensnared in the web of power plays that await. Li Hao, a young and resolute figure, finds himself at a crossroads, not seeking power but clarity. As the tension of looming danger from the Demon King intensifies, his aunt, Li Hongzhuang, urges him to act with pragmatism, suggesting he call upon family allies for help. However, Li Hao refuses to involve anyone from his past, carrying only a fragment of memory tied with red thread, symbolizing his decision to sever ties with his former life. Despite the warnings, Li Hao remains firm, preparing for the possibility of facing overwhelming odds alone, urging his aunt to leave before becoming a burden. In this tense moment, his path diverges from the familiar as he chooses not to fight the inevitable, but to let go of everything that wants to find him, finding peace within himself. The scene grows darker as others, like Li, here trapped by their duty, desperate for answers that seem unreachable. Yet, a mysterious figure steps from the shadows, hinting that this journey will not be walked alone, even when all seems lost. Through moments of reflection, pain, and growing understanding, Li Hao's story unfolds not as one of outward battles, but of inner truths. This chapter is not about the fight against others, but about the confrontation with one's own past and the strength found in silence. After a satisfying meal, Chu Ju Yue rode off, leaving behind a parting gift for Li Hao, a Saint Heart charm, a rare and valuable item meant for protection. Li Hao, familiar with the legend of such a charm from conversations with his uncles, was taken aback by its significance. This charm, used by the most powerful practitioners in the Four Stands realm, was known for its ability to save lives in moments of peril, unlike offensive charms that could even pose a threat to those in the Four Stands realm. Li Hao's Dragon Sword, a famous divine weapon, was among the finest of its kind, but it paled in comparison to the Saint Heart Heavenly Treasures, which were coveted by only the most elite. As Li Hao accepted the Saint Heart charm, his thoughts turned to his reverence for Emperor Yu, whose image remained as a towering, distant figure. Yet, the generosity of such a ruler made Li Hao realize that perhaps he was not as unreachable as he once believed. Days passed in quiet reflection, with Li Hao immersed in his cultivation, seeking peace and understanding, while the world outside continued to change, unnoticed by the stillness of his heart. The very Li He, who had been scheming to knock Li Hao unconscious and abduct him, found himself knocked out instead. Li Hao, smiling, entrusted Li He to Ren Xianxia, instructing her to take him out of Liangzhou and wait for him in Kangyu City. Ren Xianxia, concerned but understanding the young man's pride, agreed, knowing nothing would change his mind. As she left with the unconscious body, Li Hao assured her with a slight smile, promising not to die easily, for there was still much he had to teach her. In a quiet, tender moment, Ren Xianxian's unspoken feelings lingered in the air as she gazed at him. After their brief farewell, Li Hao sent her off, before turning to the small white fox by his side, warning it to fend for itself if anything happened. Alone in the courtyard, with the presence of his companions now absent, he reflected quietly, contemplating the paths they each had taken. Before he left, he shared a rare, light-hearted exchange with an old friend, ready for whatever fate awaited him on his journey. The very Li He, who had been scheming to knock Li Hao unconscious and abduct him, found himself knocked out instead. Li Hao, smiling, entrusted Li He to Ren Xianxia, instructing her to take him out of Liangzhou and wait for him in Kangyu City. Ren Xianxia, concerned but understanding the young man's pride, agreed, knowing nothing would change his mind. As she left with the unconscious body, Li Hao assured her with a slight smile, promising not to die easily, for there was still much he had to teach her. In a quiet, tender moment, Ren Xianxian's unspoken feelings lingered in the air as she gazed at him. After their brief farewell, Li Hao sent her off, before turning to the small white fox by his side, warning it to fend for itself if anything happened. Alone in the courtyard, with the presence of his companions now absent, he reflected quietly, contemplating the paths they each had taken. Before he left, he shared a rare, light-hearted exchange with an old friend, ready for whatever fate awaited him on his journey. In this world, everything is tied to a breath, a force so powerful it shapes mountains, rivers, animals, and all life. Martial artists harness this breath through chi, using it to power their abilities, while ordinary people rely on it simply to exist. However, this is no ordinary breath. It's a breath that flows from the very heavens and earth, capable of nurturing and transforming life. Li Hao, the protagonist, taps into this celestial breath, allowing his chi to merge with the universe itself, transforming into an ethereal, almost unreal brilliance. This process is not just cultivation, it's an evolution into something beyond human comprehension. His connection with this immortal chi marks his rise to the Grandmaster limit, a moment that promises greater power and understanding. Yet, as his journey unfolds, he steps into a quieter, more reflective phase. No longer driven by ambition or power, Li Hao seeks meaning, embracing inner transformation over external conflict. The world around him, now filled with remnants of past sects and ruined temples, becomes a place for self-discovery and healing, where truth emerges not through battle, but through stillness and the unraveling of one's own identity.